You get me, got you. You get me, feel it, you. You get me, got you. You get me, feel it, you. You get me, got you.
Hello, welcome. We are talking politics and religion without killing each other. I am your host, Corey Nathan, and we are proud to be a part of the Democracy Group, a network of podcasts that examines what's broken in our democracy and how we can work together to fix it. Let's get right to it. I am so happy to be joined today by Governor John Kasich. Governor John Kasich served 2 terms as governor of Ohio from 2011 to 2019, was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from 1983 to 2001, and a Republican candidate for president. His tenure in the House included 18 years in the House Armed Services Committee and 6 years as chair of the House Budget Committee, when he notably spearheaded the efforts to pass a balanced budget. That actually happened in my lifetime. Governor Kasich was also the last man standing against Donald Trump in the 2016 Republican primary. Since then, you may have seen him as an analyst on CNN, more recently on NBC News, as well as on the DNC stage when he endorsed President Joe Biden. Governor Kasich is also the author of several best-selling books, including Courage is Contagious, Every Other Monday, and most recently, Heaven Help Us, How Faith Communities Inspire Hope, Strengthen Neighborhoods, and Build the Future. Governor Kasich, I am honored to have you with us today, but I have to start with perhaps the most important news item. After Ohio State's performance this weekend, how worried are you about their prospects this season?
Well, I've been very, very concerned about who won the bands, the battle of the bands.
Oh,
okay. I asked a friend of mine who was there, and Grambling has one heck of a band, and I said, "Well, who won the band competition?" And he said, "Well, we didn't really have a competition," which tells me that Grambling probably won. But we've got a pretty good band, and they've got a pretty good band, and so that's really all I can tell you.
Okay.
And it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But listen, before we get going here, Corey,
Yeah.
I know you saved this to the end, but we're going to talk about it now.
All right.
I'm very, very interested in how you became a Christian. I have a friend who was raised in a Jewish household, but I don't think he was that dedicated. He then became a Christian through the woman he ultimately married, and became a very influential pastor here in Central Ohio and at the Vineyard Church, which is, and it's spread and sprouted. And his journey was very interesting to me. And I just wondered a little bit about your journey because it's, and I don't know, is it unusual? I suspect that it is.
I think it is unusual. I think that there's some cultural DNA or cultural baggage that we carry, and I grew up spending many
But maybe
days.
not baggage, maybe just kind of the way we're raised, right?
Well, it's more than that. I think that, for example, my grandmother was born in what's now Cherny Ostrov, Ukraine, in a shtetl, which was at the time part of the Russian Empire. And to my grandmother and even my grandfather's generation and my mother's side of the family, men who came with crosses on their helmets and crosses on their chest, it meant something. And it usually meant the burning of our houses and the raping of our sisters and it didn't mean anything good. So we carry that over generationally. I fortunately didn't experience that, but we have these sparks. You wrote about it in your book. You wrote about one of those atrocities in your book, what happened in Pittsburgh. We have these sparks that remind us and open up those wounds for us. October 7th, obviously, which we're coming upon the 2-year anniversary here, obviously is arguably the worst pogrom since the Holocaust. So it means something to us. But all that to say that so for folks, I did share with Governor Kasich offline before we hit record a little bit about what led me to the Lord. But what I didn't share was, and this is the part I think you might find interesting, is that once I did read the New Testament, that's kind of where I left the story off before we hit record.
Right.
Once I did read the New Testament, I read what I recognize as Devar Torah. Jesus in chapter 5 of the book of Matthew giving the Sermon on the Mount. I didn't recognize it as such. I just recognized a rabbi teaching on Torah, and it compelled me, it gripped me to the point where within a day or two max, I prayed a weird, awkward prayer to Jesus and gave, and submitted to his messiahship. But after that, about a month later, it was the very morning of Thanksgiving of 2000, I had a conversation with my father about becoming a Christian, and we're still having that conversation. So,
Interesting.
yeah, what's interesting is my first question for you was about your faith journey. I loved some of the stories that you shared. Was it
Well,
Farina?
yeah, Father Farina. Yeah, in fact, I was thinking about him yesterday because uh, I hurt my knee, so it's hard for me to kneel. And I remember when I was in church and I showed up being in college, I was, Mr. Cool. I'd gone to college and everything was going well. And I was standing in the back of the church and, he said he was holding up the Eucharist and saying the prayers. And I just stood there and he called me in the back. He said, if I ever see you do that again, I'm going to come knock you down
Yeah.
because this is a very sacred moment and a sacred time. I thought about it yesterday in church, but I started off. Frankly, I think it was in the fourth grade. I decided to become an altar boy because I was bored, and I thought that'd be really cool.
Okay.
So I learned all the Latin, and I became an altar boy, and I got to be pretty good at it. And then one day I became a commentator because the guy didn't show up. And I was pretty involved in the church. I mean, how was it? I don't know. I've reflected back on that, Corey, since I've written the book. Was I close to God? I think so. Did I have feelings? Yeah. But what were those feelings? Were they legitimate feelings of being close to the Lord? I assume they were, but I don't know, right?
Yeah.
Because here I am just kind of doing this as a kid. I went to public school, so that was kind of weird that here I was wrapped up in the church. But then when I went to college, I just completely drifted away and I saw God as a rabbit's foot. I need something, God, how about giving that to me?
Yeah, I've heard
And
you use that expression before. So what do you mean by God as a rabbit's foot?
oh, well, I need a new bicycle, so Lord, I'm going to pray to you today,
Yeah.
or I
Yeah.
want something good to happen. How about helping me out? And, maybe that was okay too. We don't have definitive answers to these. At least I don't. I think about these things. But, and then my parents were killed
Yeah.
by a drunk driver, and that forced me to really figure out where this all was. What was my eternal destiny? And who was I as a person? Because I was really on a fast track. I was elected as a 30-year-old congressman. I was the youngest member of the state Senate in Ohio. I was elected then. I was 26, had no support, no relatives, no money, no nothing. Got into that job, which was amazing, and then go to Congress at 30, and I'm, going to work with presidents. So I'm breezing along, and it was a few years later when this accident happened. And so, see, that was 1987. That's 13, 25. That's 38 years ago. And I'm still, like, you're still talking to your father? Well, I'm still talking to God, but I'm sort of through the window there. Because I started this Bible study, which is one of the books I wrote earlier about my faith called Every Other Monday.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, I was talking to a guy today in the gym and he lost his wife. And I was talking about my brother who I lost a couple years ago, who had really big challenges. And I said, I'm looking forward to seeing my brother and when he's going to be just normal, we could laugh and have fun again. Just like I was saying to this man, you'll see your wife again and she has a glimpse of heaven and all that. And then I said, this all better be true or I'm going to come kill the people that have talked to me about this. And they said, we'll probably be dead before you can get to us. But so I made a decision, and I think, Corey, this is all very interesting stuff to me because I heard a bishop yesterday talking about we have to crucify ourselves for Christ. We have to carry his cross. I really thought about calling him to say, oh, really? Now, should I start off in the gym? Do I need to run around the track? how hard do I have to work to do these things? Because I think what he left out, God bless him, we can't do these things. God does them.
Right. That's
I
right.
mean, he has to call us. We have to be open if we get a call, okay, I got a call, so I will answer it. But you can't just tell me that I just have to do this because I can't do it.
It's so
Right?
interesting. It's so
Don't you think
interesting.
that's true?
Absolutely. I mean, you provide stories of more than a dozen folks in your new book that testify. The expression that comes to mind is the perfect working of the body of Christ, despite the body parts, because of the body parts, because of the members of the body, right? But it's not just the body of Christ. I should point out, it's not just the body of Christ. It's there's a story about Muslim doctors. There's a couple different stories
Yeah,
about,
yes.
Jewish folks, and so it's
Yeah,
not, but it is God working in a way
yes.
through the people that we couldn't design it. We couldn't design you. One of the stories, I forget which one it is off the top of my head, but you talk about just doing what's in front of you. You can't plan the big picture. You can't set out to do this thing, but doing what you can with the resources. Now I'm looking for my notes to remember which.
But doesn't matter because they're all like stories where people, a woman has an autistic son who she's worried about
Right.
where he's going to live, or somebody who decides to go to a school and clean up a school who ends up getting involved in literacy. I mean, it's just like this is not like, or a nun who decides that, homeless people shouldn't be shunned and there's a place for them. And nobody started off that I can think of, or Hal Donaldson, who met Mother Teresa, comes home to America, gets a bag of groceries, feeds a few people. Now he's feeding over 500,000 every day. They didn't start off thinking about this. They just started off what they could do, and then it sprouted into something bigger. So for those who are watching, if you feel like a calling about something, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be faith oriented, but it's something that has to do with, I would say, that an issue that affects people, whether it's human trafficking, whether it's fighting loneliness or whatever, just take the first step in helping those or responding to that urge you have inside of you, see where it takes you.
Yeah.
And I wrote the book because I wanted the institutions of the synagogue, the church, and the mosque to all be things that are all things that give us a platform to kind of do these things. Because if you try to do them alone, my first book was called Courage is Contagious, and it was about individuals doing remarkable things. But if you do things in a group, you're more likely to be successful than if you're doing them alone.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we jumped right ahead, but we talk about jumping ahead. We dove right into it. By the time I was done with the book, I couldn't help but think that if Robert Putnam provided us the diagnosis with a book like Bowling Alone, these are a collection of stories that are very much the prescription. Do you think that's a fair
Yeah,
way
well,
to put
he
it?
also wrote a book called The Upswing, and he became so popular, I can't even get a hold of him anymore. And what he says is that we went from an I society in the Gilded Age to a we society in the gospel movement stage. And the social gospel movement changed a lot, and we went from I to we. We're back in I.
Yeah.
So I think we can get to we again. And another thing is, I was thinking about how to put this. I mean, if you don't like Trump or if you do like Trump, that's all fine. But what are you doing where you live? We're not a great top-down country. We're a better bottom-up country. We, the people, have
Right.
an ability to bring about change. And so when we're bringing about change, we don't have a lot of time to argue.
That's interesting. So you gave me a hint about this. So that's why this book at this time, because of the division, because of everyone seemingly looking at the top down kind of a thing, as opposed to the my neighbor next door, the bottom up kind of a thing.
Well, this book actually came about because somebody told me that these pastors were being beaten up about politics. They needed to declare their politics. And I thought that was absurd. And I called a bunch of theologians together, which was really remarkable in and of itself that they even responded to the call. But then I found out that we couldn't agree to one sentence about a declaration of what it means to have faith.
Right.
So my friend said, why don't you just write a book? And so one thing just kind of led to another. And, but I love this book because I think, first of all, it has a long fuse. People can read this forever. Secondly, it's going to give people an answer to what they can do with what occurs to them and urges them to do something in society. Thirdly, I think it breaks down the divisions we have today in our country. So it really serves a multiple purpose, I think. I hope so. I think it does.
Well, one of the themes that really stood out for me, you begin, you end, but there's also one of the most poignant moments in the middle, which is forgiveness. There's a quote, and I don't know if you remember it off the top of your head. Tracy Beale says, "That's my nose." And I swear to you, I was almost in tears when I read that.
The first chapter is about the massacre in South Carolina, where people forgave the shooter when they were killed in the church, the AME church in Charleston. And forgiveness takes a really long time, and sometimes you forgive right away, then you wonder that but that's what's kind of spelled out in that chapter. But what stands out to me is the fact that how could they forgive the shooter who had just on a rampage murdered their loved ones? And the last chapter is about the Tree of Life, the synagogue where the slaughter took place. And what was interesting about that is how support and empathy poured in from all over the world. And they're trying to remember, which I think probably will at some point. They want to remember, but at the same time, I think they want to forget. Forgive. That's a little more complicated. But with Tracy Beale, who has been so polarized from both her mother and father, saw her father and forgave him, but he made atonement too. I mean, he reached out to her, she reached out to him. And when you think about this, Corey, do you realize how many, we all do it, how many fights are going on inside of families over stupid things?
Yes. Yes, I do.
And then we think we either have a wedding or a funeral and everybody starts bawling on each other's shoulders saying, oh, we got to get, hopefully that happens. At some of these events, some people don't even show up, right? They say, I don't like my family. But it just takes a little bit of lowering your guard. I got a buddy whose father died, and he had a brother who was spending most of his time taking care of the father. And the two of them had really not spoken. And I told him, I said, Barney, how do you get along with your brother? Well, I don't. My brother really did a lot more work. I said, well, why don't you call your brother and just say you're sorry you weren't there to do more and you wanted him to forgive you. He did it. And guess what? They're now talking all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a little forgiveness. We all fall short of it. I don't set myself up here to say that I figured all this out, because I sure haven't. But I have a perspective I wanted to share.
Yeah. My friend Liz Joyner says it's hard to hate somebody up close.
Yeah.
From a distance, we can keep that encrusted sense of grievance, right? And I've been having this conversation for some reason. The last couple of weeks, I've been having this conversation again and again. I shared the fact that I have friends who voted for Trump. Now by the way, just for a little bit of political background, I tell folks I'm a Kempian conservative, and folks don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I should tell them I'm a John Kasich conservative, and maybe they would
know. It's a little more updated, but it's okay to. I knew Jack very well, and but remarkable guy.
That's there's a certain philosophical conservatism there with the openness to have conversations with colleagues across the aisle, right? But I tell folks, but I didn't support Trump from, going back to when he ruined the Jersey Generals, for goodness sake. But when I do tell other friends that I have friends and I have relationships and relatives and loved ones that voted for Trump, there's been such outrage for some reason, especially over the last couple of weeks. And that ties into the forgiveness thing. To me, there's nothing to forgive, but there's such grievance that's built up that folks feel that, my loved one, my relative, I should disown my relative for having checked one different box in their ballot. Maybe I'm not dealing with it in the most effective way, but I was wondering if you had some insights on how to
I have
sit
a
with.
million insights. I'm over it. Look, my greatest concern now is not, I don't even spend time thinking really that much about the current state of politics. But what I am concerned about, Corey, is the loss of objective truth.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is if you have objective truth, truth that's fundamentally, I believe, Jewish Christian uh, principle, we know what the rules are. We know what the boundaries are. We know what the guardrails are, the way we're supposed to treat others, the way we're supposed to conduct ourselves, um, as opposed to subjective truth, where I can do anything I want because I have the right to define what's true, and you don't have any right to tell me that I'm wrong.
mm.
And that's where chaos comes in. Everybody doing their own thing without any roadmap, without any game plan for a free society. And that's what we need to recover, objective truth. Because if you have objective truth, then you look at the behavior of anybody and you begin to draw conclusions that I think are healthy for a society.
Are those the types of questions that you explored in every other month, your group that gets together every other Monday?
No, this is, I'm just a constantly, that was about a Bible study and the questions that normal people would ask, I would say. I haven't read the book for a long time, but I will tell you that I sent that book to some theologians and they all, when they got it, they laughed and then they read it and they said, oh, this book's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I felt really, really, really good about it. And imagine it was a bestseller, which is really cool.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm just constantly evolving, in terms of what I'm thinking about and what's important to me. The idea of bottom up, the power of where we live to the top has been something I've been preaching for 25 years because I believe that, the people drive the change. If you wait on politicians to drive change, they're not a leading indicator. They don't lead on anything really, very few times and very few of them. But it's the public that drives change.
When you talk about bottom up, I wonder if there's a different way to think of it. But what comes to mind, there's a story pretty early on in the book, heaven help us, Sister Mary Scullion in Philly, and it's just what was so profound was how near to us it is, the profundity of just getting to know the names, getting to know the stories, right? And that was her starting point and the through line. Could you remind us a little bit or share with folks?
She raised $100 million just addressing the problem of the homeless in Philadelphia. I had a friend who's a big cheese CEO here in town who was a big one in Philadelphia. And, he says she's a force of nature. And so they started, really not much different than Mother Teresa in a way. They just put themselves in the shoes of those who were beleaguered. The other interesting thing, Corey, I found throughout my lifetime, every single person has a story.
Mm.
But you know what the problem is? We don't have the time to listen.
Right.
We just don't think that person's particularly interesting. But if we sit down and listen, do you realize how excited people get when they tell their story? Now, sometimes people are telling me a story, and I'm thinking to myself, this is really boring, but I'm going to hang in there because I'm supposed to.
Yeah.
But most times, and that was somebody just explaining their work to me. But if you ask people, tell me your story, it's amazing what you find.
Yeah.
Because everybody has something that is particularly interesting. And by the way, it's really interesting to them.
Oh, absolutely.
If we would just let them tell it.
Yeah. Yeah. David Brooks and Monica Guzman have done a lot of work on this recently. What it does is it opens up a person's humanity. You see the person not by one data point, like a terrible data point, like which box they checked for president in the last election, but you see them as a human being in front of you.
Listen, you can't think about this. You cannot, in my opinion, try to decide whether you like somebody or you don't, depending on how they voted in the last presidential election.
Right.
If you listen to people and ask them why they did what they did, most of them have a pretty good reason why they did what they did. And that's cool. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to go and have a war with somebody. Maybe in the old, and look, you know how I've been with Trump, right? I've been independent of him from the day we stood on the stage together.
Yeah.
But, I don't have time for personal, name calling, or it's stupid.
Yeah.
But if you have a different view than me, that's cool. Tell me why you feel that way. So, I get pretty interesting answers from people.
What are some of the answers that come to mind? Folks. So, you know, we don't have to talk about politics too much. I mean, that's your, that's your bailiwick. But
No, it's really not. I'm not really the only reason why. I mean, I'm involved in public affairs, but I'm not really involved in politics. I'm a
okay,
businessman now. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm sort of a cultural somebody that really studies the culture. Um, I'm hoping I'm getting ready to do some joint appearances. I'm hoping with Chuck Todd to talk about the local stuff, local news, local power, objective truth, money in politics. Is there room for more choice in third parties? Not really heavy politics, really interesting discussions at a higher level. I'm getting ready to do a Substack that will starting soon, and it is going to revolve around the issues of faith and ethics. And that's not going to be preachy, Corey, as much as it's going to be what is your responsibility to your workforce when you're a CEO? Is it only to make profit, or is there something greater than profit that matters? I mean, those are sort of ethical questions, right? If you run a social media company, should you impose some limits in terms of the way in which you're affecting young people as opposed to only worried about making money? I mean, these are that's what I kind of want to talk about. In terms of like rugged politics, I mean, I hate to say it, but in many respects, it's sort of boring to me.
oh, that's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
that was your, that was your job for your
Well,
state senate.
my job was to always get involved and try to improve the lives of people around me. And I was never, I mean, I happened to be a Republican, I happened to be a conservative, my political party was my vehicle and not my master. I mean, I'm a very independent, in some respects, iconoclastic person. So, when I was running for president, these reporters tried to put me in a box, and it made them angry when I wouldn't let them do it. And they just didn't understand me. I'm not there for you to put a label on me. If you want to put a label on me, fine, but that's not the way I operate. I mean,
Right.
there's no boundaries, no board, I don't have any guardrails. Like I can't say it. If I see something that's true, I could say it.
So
That's one of the things that I mean, I have always been that way, thanks because of my parents. But I'm a very happy guy. When I went through the death of my parents, which was devastating, I worked not only on my faith, but I worked on me,
mm,
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
what was
And
what was some of that work? What did that involve?
talking to people who are knowledgeable about any of the hopes, the fears, the dreams, the disappointments, or whatever that I've had. What makes me tick?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great experience, and I spent a lot of time on it, and I mean, it's just sort of completed the circle for me. So I'm pretty happy. I got a great wife, and my girls. I think about them and how well they're doing, and they're happy and they're faithful, and it all kind of connects together.
One of the things I was curious about is you have this record of standing on principle despite some serious headwinds, whether they be political headwinds or on some of the most controversial issues.
Yeah,
During your time as governor, you were supportive of a 20-week ban, but not you vetoed one for at 6 weeks.
right.
You got an F rating from the NRA as a governor. I think maybe that was during your time.
No, I got an F. I got an F rating. Well, here's a funny story to tell you how politics works. Now, this makes it interesting. When I was in Congress, I supported the crime bill, which I was asked by my leadership to go in and negotiate, which I did, I thought successfully. I supported the ban on assault weapons. And because I had the the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, begging me to do this, saying they were outgunned. So I supported that, which almost cost me one of my leadership positions in Congress. I survived. But here's what's interesting. I'm running for governor, right? And the Fraternal Order of Police, they go and endorse my opponent after what I did at their request on the crime bill. And the NRA was against me and campaigned all over the state.
Yeah.
So I had both of these. I got nothing, got no credit from anybody. But guess what? I beat them.
Yeah. You won. You won
I
twice.
should say we beat them. It was a good team.
Yeah.
And, but you know, there's an example of no good thing goes unpunished.
No good deed. That's right.
Look, I mean, Corey, we all have to stand up on certain things. And I give my family, my parents, a lot of credit for this, but who do I have to answer to?
God.
I got to answer to God. I got to answer to my family. I got to answer to myself and my friends. And I've lost friends over the whole Trump, Biden. And I got people that raise money for me to run for president. Trump gets elected. The next thing you know, I'm endorsing Joe Biden. I mean, there are people they're starting to talk to me now, but they didn't talk to me for years.
Yeah.
They're really so angry with me. And I actually did that because I thought Biden would bring us together. Turns out I was dead wrong. That was a disgraceful time in our country when they covered stuff up. And he didn't bring people together, and he was completely isolated. And it was just, the tragedy is that they wouldn't even, I tell you this now, not because I won anything, but when I spoke at the Democratic convention, and I was the first Republican to sort of do something like that, he called me that night and we talked. I never talked to him again for the next 4 years. They wouldn't let me anywhere near him because I would have told him he was screwing up. Right. They didn't want to hear that.
Well,
isn't that unbelievable?
It is unfortunate. I think, do not forsake the gathering together of the brethren. Iron sharpens iron. There's so much wisdom in getting together, and that's what I was asking. That's what I wanted to ask about before. What was your process? You said talking to people. You learned a lot through talking to people. Is that how you were able to arrive at pretty solid ground on controversial issues, or
Well, you have instincts, but I mean, controversial issues. The one that was, that people would always say was controversial is I expanded Medicaid. So I had an opportunity to help 600,000 people who were living in prison or living under a bridge and getting them health care and improving the mental health conditions in Ohio. What was the choice, Corey?
I'm glad I'm not governor.
I mean, what's the choice? I mean, there was no choice.
Right.
I mean, because somebody's going to say you support Obamacare, whatever. I helped 600,000 people. I still have people come up to me and say, thank you for what you did. But that was another team. I had a great team. And the reason I say that is basically my team would give me information. I would make a decision. But once I made a decision, my team was with me.
Mm. And
they offered me the support, that I needed, even if they didn't really believe in what I was doing. they still would fake it and tell me, no, they were with me.
Yeah.
So it was not that hard a job.
It sounds like you had people that were being contrarian in the process leading up to making that decision. To give you the other, another point of view. Have you considered it this way?
You mean that I'm not sure what you're asking.
Did you have people around you that
who said you shouldn't do it? That you shouldn't do it?
Yeah. Like I mean,
it was really a simple decision for me. Yeah. Honestly, it was not even. I didn't have to go around asking people. All I wanted to make sure is that when I did that, we weren't going to bankrupt the state, and we'd made enough hard choices with our programs for the poor and made enough savings, and we had expanded the program, but yet it cost us less to do that. We were in a good position to be able to do it. So it was really not, I didn't go around and say we shouldn't, because that would have been, it was not relevant to me.
Yeah.
I guess that's a case where maybe somebody said, well, you should have listened more. No, I listened enough.
Well, not just,
and you kind of know what you want to do on these things, right? I mean, it's not that hard as far as I'm concerned. And there's things I've learned over the years. And by the way, when we say we stand on principle or whatever, none of us stand on principle. We're all frauds.
What do you mean by that?
Just what I said.
Okay.
You figure it out.
Oh,
Are
man.
are you a fraud?
Well, yeah.
Thank you. We all are.
Yeah.
It's just that we have forgiveness and
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and we could just say look, we screwed up. I mean, I'm a hypocrite. I mean, are you kidding me?
I shouldn't have even had to think about it. So I have this program, Talk of Politics and Religion Without Killing Each Other. I mean, how many times I've just lost it completely over a conversation about politics and religion. I mean, I'm still.
What's wrong with you? You're such a nice guy.
No, I'm a hypocrite. That's what's wrong with
Oh,
me.
yeah. I mean, that's right. There you go. Thank you. And you know what? It's so, honestly, Corey, it's just, the one thing we all have to do is we get so wrapped up in politics, like, why don't we just think about where it is where we live? I mean, let me, it's a famous thing I ask people. Who would you miss more if they went on vacation? The Secretary of State or your trash man?
Oh, the trash man for sure. In fact, I'm friends with my trash man.
There you go. So what I'm saying is, it's like, don't get too wrapped up in all that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So one more question about the book. That's something that really hit me was the group of doctors who asked a simple yet really profound question: what more can we do?
Yeah, you mean the Muslim doctors? Yeah. Well, one of them said his father said that was he living the great Muslim tradition, and he thought he really wasn't enough. So he got together with some other of his faith, and they opened a clinic. And interestingly enough, it wasn't for the poorest because they were getting Medicaid. It was for those who get themselves caught in the crack, where they don't get any help and there's nothing there for them. And so, yeah, they're expanding, and it's been cool. I think the other one that's really good in here is the guy that had the dream. And, his dream was very, very vivid. He pursued the dream for 15 years, and the dream was to purchase land and open up a church, a synagogue, and a mosque on the same parcel of land.
Oh, man, I love that story.
And now in Omaha, Nebraska, they have it with a community center, and what a cool thing.
It's really a center, a true community center where so much life is happening, and folks across their differences are neighbors with each other.
Exactly.
Hanging out with each other.
All came from a dream.
Yeah, a dream.
I'll tell you, I found out about him was from Susie Buffett, who is a wonderful daughter of Warren Buffett. And Al Pacino told me, don't be a name dropper. No, I'm just kidding.
No, do it. I love it. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. And I was with her at a U2 concert at the Sphere in Vegas. And I asked her, did she really know any great Muslim stories? And she referred me to this guy. And then, he's really a cool guy. He's a lawyer. He's, was a big member of the synagogue, but he keeps denying that he has much faith, and he's a great guy, and Bob Freeman, and it's really a cool story. But there's so many good ones in here. I love the one in Massachusetts where the guy's been serving free lunches and breakfasts for years and years, and when you show up, they give you a menu. You get a beautiful tablecloth. It shows dignity, respect to the poorest among us.
Yeah. It's similar to washing someone's feet. You're giving them a sense of dignity and a real sense of service. How about those stories from our scripture about the kindness that Jesus showed to the total outcasts? Yeah. I mean, they are just such amazing stories, right? I mean, just such a beautiful picture that he not only did he paint, that he did. The people who everybody shunned, and here he is lifting them up. By the way, the show The Chosen, which I have watched, particularly season 1, season 4 and 5, just incredible show. The Chosen, it's streaming, I think, on Prime. I don't, there's so many
but it's just excellent. And what I liked about it, Corey, is it took Jesus from the page to the visual.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's fabulous.
It's popping up on my feed again and again. So now I definitely have to
Oh
go
yeah,
and
you got
watch
to
it.
watch it. It's
Yeah.
it's really, 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 really good.
I want to ask you a really personal question, and you can tell me to move on if you don't want to talk
Okay.
about it. But again, one of the themes that really gripped me right from the start, I'm going to share a quick quote from the beginning of the book. To heal, we must forgive, offered Polly Shepard, the woman whose life was spared by the shooter in South Carolina, in the church in South Carolina, Mother Emanuel, so she would live to tell the story. She said, "That's what I've learned. So much hate, too much. But as scripture says, love never fails, so I choose to love." Have you ever gone through the process of forgiving the drunk driver who killed your parents?
It's interesting. The answer to that is yes, and the reason is, uh, it was so devastating in the beginning. It'd take us another Zoom for me to go through it all, but my sister and I would write letters whenever he was going to come up to be released. And after a while, I called her. I said, Donna, let's not send any more letters. I mean, if that guy could turn the clock back, right? If he could turn the clock back and not do what he did, would he do it? And I suspect he would.
Mm,
And so I actually don't bear any kind of feelings at all about it anymore, probably by the grace of God. Um, yeah, there's a lot of things that happen in life where you really got to have a little forgiveness because in my world, been a lot of disappointments and hurt things that have hurt. But it's okay. I don't seem to remember them.
yeah.
I might remember them, but I don't think about it. And yet there's some people that have just, let me put it to you this way. I've forgiven everybody, but I haven't forgotten some of what happened.
Yeah,
And I
because
don't know how you separate those, but I don't wish anybody, the way I think about that is somebody who might have done some harm to me, I don't wish them any harm.
mm,
I've forgiven them for what they did. And, but I haven't always forgotten what they did. You
yeah.
know, what do you think of that?
I don't think we can. I don't think we should because there's a brokenness that we have to go and live with, right?
Yeah.
So the brokenness doesn't go away. We can heal from it, but it's not like the brokenness goes away.
Yeah.
What happened happened, but the healing, yeah, like Polly talks about, the healing has to start with the forgiveness. So that kind of leads into a question that's sort of the theme of this program, which is the TP&R question. That is, what do you think each of us can do to be able to share space with, have better conversation? And your book is kind of an answer to this, but I'll just have you answer. How do we have better conversations with, even nurture relationships with people across our differences, people who get their news from different sources than we do, who have different backgrounds than we do? How can we do better at talking politics and religion without killing each other? Or is it even possible?
Well, I have a former doctor who is, he, we just, I just laugh at his views because he's not going to change his mind and I'm not changing mine. I have another really good friend, and he listens to all this right-wing radio, and we'll actually make jokes about it, like, oh yeah, but rooted in all of these lives of people they disagree with are just some fundamental values, and we're kind of back to objective truth.
Mm,
You know, you shouldn't smear other people. Everybody's made in the image of God. I mean, they wouldn't describe it that way, but you got to be a decent person. You got to help those that are down on their luck. I mean, so I think if you dig down, you'll find that people that you're going to associate with kind of share a lot of your basic views. Now, there's some people who are just really angry, and in that case, I think you got to understand why they are so angry. I, people sometimes can be so upset, so angry, but you got to hear why. And there's some people that, man, I'm staying away from.
yeah.
I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna cast my pearls in the wrong place. Does that answer it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a couple of good pieces of wisdom there that I have to remember. But asking the
Take
question,
somebody in your family, right, that you might be fighting with because they are whatever, different politically. Talk about your grandfather, your grandmother. It just seems to you find common ground by doing that.
Yeah.
Don't. I used to work with a guy, his name was Ron Dellums. He was a very liberal guy from California. He and I were involved in military reform, and people called us the odd couple and everything. With Ron, there were just areas we didn't go to because we weren't going to agree. And so I just didn't go there. And if I went there, I would go there with sort of a, hey, explain this to me. But most of the time I'm looking for how we can have a chuckle, how we can share something that we both agree is something we care about.
Yeah.
At common ground.
I was reminded just recently of Thurgood Marshall in a dissenting opinion that he wrote about. He was echoing a Frederick Douglass piece of wisdom that the freedom to speech is indelibly tied to the freedom to listen, the right to listen. So this has been, so when you talk, you've said it a few times just in our short time here, ask the question, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
And then listen, right?
Yeah.
But also the other piece that you just said was knowing my limits. Sometimes I just have to, tap out.
There's sometimes there's things you're not gonna agree with.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my one friend. You were asked me earlier. I didn't really answer because we didn't get into it. But why was he such a big Trumper? And he said, well, look, John, the border was just a mess. And he did something about it. And I knew something needed to be done. And I don't like the idea of boys playing in girls' basketball games and vice versa. I listened to him and I said, well, what if this happens? He goes, well, if that happens, it's another story. But, I listened to him and I thought, okay, good points. Good points. I can't really disagree with what your thinking is there. Because frankly, I agree with him. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Well, look, we've gone a long time here, and I got to go.
Okay.
Right, Corey?
Before you go, you get to ask me a quick question, and then we'll.
Well, I asked you in the beginning the seminal question: How did you change this faith? And it's still, as you say, you're still explaining it to your father. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And I also say that this is a classy operation you have. I really hope you can keep it going. I'm honored to be a part of it, and.
Do you have a name for the Substack that's coming up?
Keep Faith America.
I love it.
By
we'll
John
keep an
Kasich.
eye out for that. Heaven Help Us is the book. I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes.
Good. And then I'll come back on when the Substack comes going and we could talk about it.
I'll take you up on that, Governor Kasich. This has been such a pleasure for me. I've been wanting to talk to you for many years. So thanks again for doing this. And
Best to your family. Best to your family.
Thanks so much.
All
thanks
right.
so much.
See ya. Thank you. Bye.
As always, if you dig what we're doing here, remember to follow the show and write that review. And now you can watch these conversations on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@politicsandreligion. And I am at Corey S. Nathan. That's Corey, S as in Sam, Nathan. All the socials, including Substack for us. Now, go talk some politics and religion with gentleness and respect, and have a great week.